Hey everyone, how we doing today? This is James Sweeney, aka SplitSuit, and welcome back to another video. And as part of the Ask SplitSuit a Question series, a couple people did ask hand history questions, and this one actually came privately via Facebook. And Josh just wants me to review a hand from the early stages of a tournament. So let's check out the hand. Okay, so this is definitely the early stages of a tournament. Blinds are 25-50 with 1500 starting stacks. There's a limp, there's a limp, there's a limp, there's another limp, and here decides to attack to a $1.95. So this, in my opinion, is going to be like the most important part because this sets up the entire hand. And this is a situation where I think it's a prime situation just to limp behind. Call the 50, try to set mine for super cheap. You only have 3 people behind you that could possibly raise the pot. And I think it's very unlikely that someone does, at least with a weak hand. And because of that, I think this is a great situation to limp back. Think about what happens if you raise here. If you raise, are you going to pick this pot up pre-flop? Well, it's the early stages of a tournament, which means you don't have a lot of hands or information on your opponents, which means you can't know if raising a 195 is going to pick up the pot a lot pre-flop. As a pure default, I would not expect it. So that means you're in a situation where you're most likely going to get multiple callers. You're in a situation where, yes, you could smash a set, but let's be honest, 88% of the time, you're not going to, and you're going to be in a situation where you have this weak pair that really can't do anything, and you're just hoping that people fold. But by the time you get multiple callers, the pot's going to be, what, $600-700, give or take. You have like no maneuverability to try to move people off. So you're going to be in a situation where you're risking a lot of money with a lot of uncertainty and probably not a lot of folds happening. And especially when you're looking at like the first limper, right? EP1 who open limps under the gun, that's someone that I'm probably not going to assume is a good player. Open limping under the gun is not a good thing to do. And because of that, I assume he's probably going to call. And once he calls, everyone else wants to call as well, because now everyone gets multiple sources of implied odds and whatever excuse they want to use. So because of that, you're kind of creating a situation where you're not going to perform well. There's really just nothing you can do in a situation like this. So if you have information, sure. But without it, I would just much rather limp behind here, call the 50, try to set mine for super cheap, as opposed to raise here and put yourself in a situation where something like this, where you get this massive string of callers, is most likely going to happen. And this is just not a good situation for us. So at this point, we end up going to the flop of Queen Jack Deuce with 2 hearts. There's a check, check, check. And at this point, Hero says, obviously I'm worried about draws and pairs, so I c-bet strong for 300. So a couple quick notes here. One, this is not a strong c-bet, simply because it is very, very small. You're giving everyone a great price on you, and also you're probably really not generating many folds, at least not from 4 people on this texture. There are a ton of different ways for people to have hit this board in one way or another, and I would not expect 4 players to fold on this texture, particularly when you're giving them like 4.7 to 1. I just don't ever expect this to work. So this is one of those where preflop was misplayed, yes. So because of that, my main goal here is how the heck can I get out of this pot without messing up any further? So this would be the point where I would just say, okay, well, my preflop play was not great. It definitely did not work the way I wanted it to, and because of that, I just need to get the heck out of here cheaply. And especially in a tournament where you're trying to salvage chips and make sure that you don't just set any on fire, I would definitely just check here and be done with it. But as played, there's a shove by the button, a call from EP1, and Josh says, I obviously am beat, so I fold, but what should I have done differently? So the big things we could have done differently: 1, limp behind preflop when we had the opportunity to. Much better spot to limp behind as opposed to raise. I know I talk all the time about preflop aggression and just being aggressive in general, but there are times when limping behind is certainly going to be best, and with things like small pairs and small suited connectors, when there are multiple limpers in front of you, those are prime candidates to consider limping behind as opposed to attacking. And then the other mistake, in my opinion, was the flop c-bet. Just a situation where you're not going to generate enough folds, in my opinion. You just don't have the information to. It's a really bad texture for you. So my major focus would just be to get out of it as cheaply as possible. Again, we're going to make mistakes. That's a foregone conclusion in poker. But when we make a mistake early in a hand, our major focus is how can we get out of this hand without creating any more damage. And again, by saving ourselves that $300 c-bet, I think we're going to help ourselves in the long run a ton if we ever make that pre-flop mistake. So Josh, hopefully this helps you the next time you find yourself in a similar situation, and if you or anyone else has a poker related hand or question, feel free to leave it on our Google Plus page. I'll leave a link for that in the description box, and also please make sure to like and subscribe if you're enjoying these types of videos. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to let me know. Otherwise, good luck out there and happy grinding.